So how's it going, folks? We're here at Stormont Parliament Buildings. There is a pretty significant size of a crowd gathered for protest against COVID-19. People are here to speak up for their rights, for freedom. They don't want to be oppressed, etc, etc. And I just really want to connect a few dots with people and see if they feel consistent across the board in terms of not oppressing non-human animals, and we'll see where we go from there. It should be interesting, so stick around. What brings you here today, I guess?
Just the fact that our freedom's being tucked away and we're being told what to do.
Yeah.
Here to basically, I'm interested in freedom. I'm interested in not hearing media lies. I think the biggest concern to me is we need to trust the people that are governing us. And when we just got crowd reaction, sorry.
No, I think someone's just getting arrested there.
If we the people actually stand up and say something,
we're not having it.
We're not having it. No, it's not right. That's basically the message.
We just need people to open their eyes. People keep saying to me, we'll get through it. I don't want to get through it because what's on the other end is something that I don't want to deal with,
You can hear that mayhem going on
over there.
This is insane.
We're here, we're in the same camp as you. We believe that basically we should have the freedom to do what we want to do, and like you said, no one likes being told how to live their lives. So we're actually animal rights activists, and we think that people are here to speak up for freedom and to be against oppression, to be against rights taken away, and we basically want to see how people feel when it comes to the likes of say if people I used to eat animals and I never really thought about it, and I realised that I was contributing to this crazy suffering, unnecessary violence and bloodshed, and that there was an alternative way to live and basically didn't involve eating animal products. But I basically felt like a hypocrite because I call myself an animal lover, and I realised I was paying for the bloodshed of animals, innocent animals who couldn't do anything to defend themselves and had done nothing wrong. So I'm just hoping today if I can spark a train of thought in someone's mind to think if I'm against this type of oppression and injustice being inflicted on me and the people, would I go as far as being sort of consistent with that anti-oppression stance when it comes to non-human animals, the animals that we put in slaughterhouses and consume. There's so much potential here to connect dots with people, and vice versa. I learn from every person that I speak to. I gain new perspective and insight. And basically, I used to eat animals. I watched some slaughterhouse documentaries. I looked at the way animals were suffering. I see them as innocent. They can't do anything about their suffering. And I feel like people are here for freedom and people are here for justice. I guess my question would be, do you think there's anything inherently hypocritical if we're speaking up for justice on one hand and oppressing defenseless animals on the other hand? We're basically trying to see if people are pro-freedom and anti-oppression across the board. We're actually animal rights activists. We look at animals as if animals want to be free. Animals don't even have basic rights. They end up in slaughterhouses and they get chopped into pieces. And we all grew up in the same society. We used to eat animals. We used to not think about animals as sentient individuals with the capacity to suffer and experience joy and pain. And basically we just want to see we're all here and we want to speak up for our freedom, and we don't want to be oppressed and we don't want to have our rights taken away from us. Do you think there's any inherent hypocrisy in that, but at the same time people who pay for the oppression and suffering and killing of animals who also share that same desire as we do to be free and to not be oppressed? And
everybody wants to be free. Some people like being directed. Some people are very happy to be told what to do, and that's okay. But we live in a society now where people are allowed to think for themselves. We are allowed to have expressions. We're allowed to do things like this. This is well within our rights to do this, and now's the time to do it. If ever there was any, your animal rights activists, they're testing these vaccines on animals,
that's another reason why I wouldn't. 100% they are.
I've started to actually look into a couple of things about meat and that it can be more damaging for you. Especially when you take too much of something.
100%, man. The saturated fat, the cholesterol, the antibiotics, the trans fats, all that stuff, chemicals.
I started to eat less meat. Well, I didn't completely stop it, but I started to eat less meat and started to look into the hemp seeds and all that carry on.
Load of protein, iron, calcium and all that.
Me didn't know that you could get everything that you need from the
from plants.
Yeah,
yes, mate.
plants.
Yes, same here. So it's sort of like the mainstream narrative that we're told we need to eat meat for protein, we need to drink cow's milk for calcium, and that's what they say. But like, I learned that everything we get from eating animal products comes from a plant-based source, because the animals we eat plants in the first place, and we just get it second-hand, really, through their suffering, unfortunately. So I'm just...
They promote everything as bad for you, really, don't they? Like, the same with
and they keep all the good stuff quiet.
These crap on the shelves that they're selling doesn't even... I don't think you're...
The absorption rates and...
So it doesn't, like, the false economy, is that what it is?
Exactly, yeah. I think you're definitely right there. I just feel it's such an injustice what happens to animals. I've watched so much slaughterhouse footage. I've been on some farms in this country myself, and I've seen firsthand like the suffering that goes on. And I just think, people are here for the right reason, for freedom, for justice, and I just feel like there's a sort of inherent hypocrisy, but it's like an innocent type of ignorance, because people genuinely don't seem to know. I didn't know, and I feel like the hypocrisy is like to be here for justice while oppressing others. And condemning them to death for something as trivial as taste. For my beliefs of eating this burger, I'm going to force you to die in a slaughterhouse and consume your flesh.
The animal doesn't have a choice, but now we're going to see what it's like not to have a choice.
Exactly, man. That's it. So I wanted to connect that dot. I feel like it's a really easy jump. It's maybe not a common sort of one you'd make independently. I never made that connection. I seen this speech, and it changed my mind. And now I don't eat animals. I don't oppress animals. And I wouldn't do that to a human being, So I feel like, well, they may be different than us, but in their capacity to suffer, they're the exact same.
We'll feel just as much as they did.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Have you got a card? So, man, I just seen this. It changed my mind. All we can do is give information. It's called The Best Speech You Will Ever Hear. It's on YouTube, and he just makes you think about the suffering through the eyes of the animal. And basically, if you don't feel okay with that, like, I just want to let people know that there's an alternative, and it's just plant-based eating, being vegan. Vegan is a stance. It's nothing to do with diet or anything. It's nothing to do with a trend. It's a stance against injustice towards animals.
Right.
And if you feel like, if you could watch slaughterhouse suffering, or you feel like you could kill an animal yourself and consume it, that's sort of not my bag. I feel like most people couldn't, though.
But comes to doing it themselves.
Exactly. We pay someone else to do the dirty work. We pay the hitman.
You can't see it doesn't hurt, sort of thing.
Exactly, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Doesn't stop the suffering, unfortunately. But there's a saying, your perspective is limited by how much you know. And I never knew. There's loads of good resources there. There's a documentary that's UK slaughterhouse standard legal practices. We show it in town in the city centre, try and raise awareness through different means. But we feel genuinely that people just may not be aware that they actually agree with us once they're exposed to the information. If I could,
good thing to
if I could bless you with that, man.
Awareness of it anyway, like.
Definitely, animals. We can all be here and speak up for ourselves, but animals can't speak up for themselves. They're being forced to be quiet and killed in a slaughterhouse. So I feel like, man, it's good karma as well. You're not consuming the flesh of innocent beings who suffer needlessly. Collectively, that karma, it's bad energy. Like, I just don't think we can have.
It's the whole thing with information, though, as well. If everybody had
information suppression,
them, double check on Google. I think you probably know that.
Yeah. It's
I use DuckDuckGo or something now. All
the one I use is like they plant trees. For every search you do or something, or they raise money to plant trees. But no, I know where you're coming from. You can't be too careful, and like the narrative keeps changing on what's legit and what's not. So I appreciate your time, man, and I just wanted to try and get some different points of view, and hopefully maybe inspire people to think about the animals who are always the forgotten victims, because they're out of sight.
See it.
Exactly, man. So I'll just leave you with that, and it's up to you obviously what you do with the information, but Any thoughts on it? Or?
No, I'm just glad to hear that there's someone still pushing other things that are important as well. Like,
man, we're all on this planet together. We're all Earthlings, so
we're all sharing it.
Exactly, man. We all draw breath from the same source and bleed the same blood. So we're all one family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your name, man?
I'm Robin.
Robin Thomas. Thanks very much for the interview, and I really appreciate it, man. I just encourage you to, check out the information if it resonates with you. You don't have to, pay for animals to suffer anymore.
Yeah, that'll do. I'll take a look for your channel on YouTube as well.
Yes, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
What it's on
it's. Let me see how I would. So you.
Yeah, I appreciate that's maybe a difficult question.
I would speak as I call myself a vegetarian. I'm massively interested in health. And for that reason, my approach to animals is that we can eat them, but they're not particularly good for us, especially when we mistreat them. I kind of think that one day a long time ago, probably if you kept a few goats and they ran around, it wasn't a bad thing, or or similar.
But do you mean back then you eventually killed them and ate them?
Well, they would be better
for necessity.
I'm talking about better treated, and I think it's a bit like if you go down the route of I think it's okay to eat animals, but we need to treat them properly. Okay. I think they should be well treated, and also from an aspect of what would you call it? The antibiotics and stuff we're giving the animals. It's not healthy, and they've got to be allowed to free range and stuff. So if most of us didn't eat the animals, I find it difficult not to eat any animals. So I like to have the attitude that I basically eat more vegetables, because that's what a vegetarian should do.
Right.
But a lot of them don't. A lot of them eat more bread, dairy, and sweets and Coke, and they end up, it's not healthy. So I'm approaching it from a health perspective. Eat more vegetables, and I don't like rules. So if I go out and I fancy something that's different on the menu, sorry guys, I'm gonna go with that on that occasion. But generally, I'm on your side if you get my drift.
I do. I think I do.
It's a kind of balanced. The way I would say it's kind of balanced.
Okay.
That I don't want to be. Once I draw that line, and say then I'm going to make life difficult for what I'm choosing to eat all the time. Most weeks I don't eat much meat at all, if any.
No, I respect that. I guess where I'm coming from. You're saying about you think that the animals need to be treated better. I fully agree with that, and where I'm coming from is like they need to be treated better, but that goes out the window as soon as someone sticks a knife in their throat and chops them into pieces, because I'm sort of there's this phrase in the industry, humane slaughter, and it's like an oxymoron to make people's conscience be soothed and feel like they're doing something that's okay. You mean when we look at the word humane, it means to be like compassionate, to show kindness, and slaughter is just to like violently take someone's life. So I guess, say in this ideal world where maybe the world population wasn't consuming many animals and it was small-scale farms and the animals were free range, best conditions you can imagine, would you still say, I understand we have a different point of view on this, and you say you think it's okay to eat animals. Do you still think that it's okay? Like, they have to suffer and die at some point.
Okay, the way I look at it is, in the original diet, because as a Christian I take the Bible's view, and the original diet God gave man was vegetable.
Garden of Eden.
It was and often people refer to the Genesis diet as being the best for your health. But a little bit later on,
after we sinned.
Basically as a concession to man, God said you can eat of the animals. And they had a small livestock that they would use. And it didn't seem at that time to do them a lot of harm. It seemed to be reasonable. And that's where I'm coming from. I think that kind of a proper attitude to letting them, run around freely, roam freely. But yes, I think because of what God allowed, I think I would be inclined to say, look, it's okay. That's my bottom line. The reason I don't eat a lot of meat is completely health. The health is in the vegetables. The Greek salad here, that's where a lot of health is going to be. So that's
phytochemicals
and our diets in the West is generally pretty crap.
I agree.
So we got to do something to improve our diets, and it shouldn't be processed foods that are getting rid of meat. In my opinion, it should be vegetables.
Whole foods
on them because they taste better. You've got these beautiful tastes. So if we can work that in, that's going to be beneficial. And the animals will like us because we're nicer to them. That's the basis of it. So
how do you feel about animals? Like, do you eat animals yourself?
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie.
I used to. I'm not a vegetarian either. I'm not a vegetarian either, and I used to eat animals. I was like the most unconscious person you could meet when it came to the oppression of animals. There's a beautiful dog over there. I used to have a dog growing up. I still have a little dog now, and I look at dogs the way I look at cows now, and chickens, and pigs, and fish, and they're sentient. They have the capacity to suffer. It might be a bit harder to empathise with their suffering because they're out of sight, they're out of mind. But like a dog is a pig, is a cat, is a chicken. They have the same spark of life inside them as we do, and they just want to be free. They don't want to be oppressed. So where I'm sort of coming from, I'm trying to just gently nudge people into having it's like, your perspective is limited by how much you know. I like to say that when I sort of have these conversations, and we just want to let people know that like animals are having their throats sliced every single second of every single day on this planet. And I just feel like consistent anti-oppression is like the way to go. Like if we're speaking up for ourselves, like how can we turn around and oppress animals who are innocent, defenseless, they haven't done anything wrong to anybody? And we can also, like the science shows, that we can be healthy and have a nutritious diet, still eating vegan basically. Like I've been vegan for years now, and I used to eat all those things, and I'm healthy, I'm strong, and I'm happy just knowing that negative karma and that energy of slaughter isn't in my body.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to come and try and encourage some people to think about animals as well. And I know like the human race has like a big fight on our hands at the minute with all this nonsense. It's something like in 1 week we slaughter more animals than all humans that have ever existed on this planet. So it's insane, like the amount of bloodshed and violence that goes on behind closed doors.
Horrible. No, it is. It's not nice.
If
maybe we'll kind of look into it, but right now I have too much.
Yeah.
Like if you look into the Pizzagate stuff and things.
Oh my God, adrenochrome and.
I'm just gonna go one battle at a time.
Yeah, one battle at a time.
I guess 2 points I have on that then. Back in the day when there was like smaller numbers of animals, and in the olden times, I would say that they were eating those animals then out of necessity because they didn't have alternatives. In 2020, we don't have to do that. We have alternatives. It sort of foregoes the whole slaughter. And on the religious thing as a whole in general, I've sort of looked at various religious texts, and as far as I can see, no religion like mandates the consumption of animals.
No.
And like God will still love us if we don't consume animals. It's not like the only way to earn God's love is like through bloodshed of animals. Where I'm going with it is like I talk to Christians from time to time, and I sort of say to them, do you think Jesus would dwell in a slaughterhouse? Do you think Jesus would be happy with unnecessary bloodshed?
I'll give you
that sort of thing.
I'll give you your I think if we actually had to kill animals ourselves, we would eat a lot less. We would eat virtually none.
Says a lot, really, doesn't it?
That does say a lot. But still personal, I'm for the freedom of choice.
Yeah, I see that quite clearly.
So that's what I'm going to say.
That's why I wanted to speak to you.
You're not effectively going to change my view, but I am quite strongly in favour of vegetables. That's the way I will put it.
You seem very keen. Me too. I mean, that's pretty much all I eat.
And I don't think you'll be able to change my mind in that respect. I'll certainly share my view, though.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll just maybe say one more thing. It's a common thing people say, personal choice. We should respect others' personal choice. For me, it's like, yes, I completely agree with that, but what about as soon as our personal choice is it really still a personal choice as soon as it turns into harming someone else? Because it might be like it's your personal choice for animals to die for you to eat, and that you would then find justification for that on the grounds of that's my personal choice. Other people could take that logic and say, well, it's my personal choice to be racist. It's my personal choice. Does that personal choice then alone just justify...
It's not a very good logical argument, because you also say, well, what about the plants? Now, you're going to start killing the plants.
What about the plants?
Well, are you going to kill them to eat them?
We do, and
You're okay with that?
Yeah, plants
don't mind the plant life dying?
Plants aren't sentient. They don't have a brain or a nervous system.
They certainly don't. No.
They're alive, like they react to stimulus in their external environment, 100%.
That's my point.
They don't have the capacity to suffer. And when we eat animals, I never thought about a lot of this stuff. When we eat animals, we're paying for a lot more plants to die as crops to be fed to the animals. Whereas if we just eat plants, if you care about plants, then by default logic, you should only eat plants.
Okay, my other real point is it depends what you think of as dominion, and I think of dominion as
very subjective word, I guess.
It's a choice that we are making, and I think we should minimise that. That's the part where I will go along with what you're saying. I think we're probably not at a point. And what would concern me more is what they're going to do to our food in the near future if we're not careful.
That is a very big concern.
Genetically modifying it, they're taking the role of God, and it really concerns me that they probably don't know the long-term effects of what they're doing. and that would be an issue. And but I don't know enough about it. I haven't looked into it enough. I just try and keep my food source as pure as I can. But
yes, of course, I see this saying a lot, and I say to people, your perspective is limited by how much you know. And I guess, I've seen slaughterhouse documentaries. I've looked into health. I've looked into how eating a vegan diet, I guess, is better for the environment and all these things. Ultimately, I think if we don't have to consume animal products and we can be healthier and fitter and stronger, then by proxy, aren't we morally obligated, because to not do so causes unnecessary suffering, I guess?
Yeah, well, you're entitled to your opinion. I don't happen to agree with that, but particularly I think...
Freedom for humans, but not for animals?
We probably... Well, I think I've stated my case, which is that if we have dominion over the animals, then it is a choice that we're making.
That was something I wanted to come back to.
And basically, I think that we do have dominion over them, but I would much rather we were much wiser with it and we were less cruel. I'm pretty much against vivisection, and I read something recently about how the pharmaceutical industry whenever they're doing vaccines and or drugs, when they test it on animals, it's pretty worthless testing.
Dead cells from animals that they're slaughtered for the vaccine.
Certainly, I'm reading Dr. Vernon Coleman's views on it. Yeah. Very, very interesting. He says that they basically take whatever result they want. If they don't get the result they want, they ignore it. And if they get the result they want, they proclaim it and say, look, it doesn't harm the animals. But if it does harm the animals, they often ignore it.
Yeah, and a lot of the research done on animals doesn't translate to human trials either.
That's exactly right. So there is a definite places where we could smarten it up, tidy it up, and avoid a lot of suffering. Very unnecessary.
All I can do is just say to people and let them know. That's it. Every day above ground and with knowledge is a new day. Have you got cards? All we do is just give people an information card. I seen a speech and it changed my mind. It might change your mind, it might not. But I went from an overnight meat eater to a animal rights activist, pretty much. And they don't have a voice. We can all be here and speak up for ourselves and raise our voices. They're forced to die for our sort of ignorance, and it's an innocent type of ignorance because we don't really know.
It's the way. It's kind of the same as with the vaccines. People, don't look into the stuff because they just trust the government. They trust what they're told to eat. If you're told that you can eat a cow, you're gonna eat a cow.
Yeah, that's it. That's been the mainstream narrative. You need to eat meat for protein. You need to drink cow's milk for calcium. When all those things actually originate in the plants that animals are fed in the first place.
Yeah.
So we just go straight to the primary source. Don't filter it through a corpse, and there's no saturated fat, cholesterol. But it's really not about health or the environment, even though it is better in both respects. It's an issue of justice. Just like this is an issue of justice and the removal of freedoms. They're literally, their date of death is planned before they're even born, I know. So it's awful, and I just think it's a mass injustice. And people who are justice-minded, I just feel like we should let them know as well. It's I get where you're coming from. You got a lot on your plate, but it's really as simple as just you can be pro-animal rights and anti this by just going into the supermarket and buying something else. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both at the same time. I'm in the same camp with you guys with this. It doesn't mean I can't be animal rights at the same time, So it's this speech here on YouTube. It really changed my mind, and it's just called The Best Speech You'll Ever Hear. Really powerful. As I say, your perspective's limited by how much you know. I mean, you know better. I feel like you should do better. And we're a society of animal lovers. So I feel like at the same time we can't turn the other way and be a society of animal abusers and force them to die for our taste pleasure, basically. And we can get tasty vegan food, which is everywhere now, and it's so good.
It is everywhere.
But thanks very much for the interview, and I'm really grateful for your contribution.
Thank you.
See the word dominion? I feel like the word dominion gets conflated, and people either think dominion means domination, or they think that dominion means there's another word beginning with D that I'm looking for. It's escaped my mind, but responsibility, basically. So do you think it means that we should have responsibility as caretakers, or do you think that it should mean we can dominate those more vulnerable than us, i.e. the animals?
We should be responsible caretakers of them.
And you think that we can kill them and be responsible at the same time?
It's possible to kill a few and eat them, yes. That's what I personally feel.
No, I agree with you. I think it's completely possible. But do you think that falls into the grounds of dominion, caretaking, responsibility?
I think you can do if you do it in a responsible way.
What would that look like?
Well, a bit like I'm describing, that you look after the animals properly, you make sure they're allowed to free range, you don't...
What about the act of slaughter? What would a responsible...
I don't know, I haven't looked into it enough.
I always get that answer.
You know, you can work out, but...
I know what you mean. It's one of those things people say to me quite commonly. They say, you know what, there must be a better way, there must be a more humane way. And then when I'm like, well, what would that look like? People are sort of like, I don't know. And then I'm like, well, is there a humane way to kill someone who doesn't want to die?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not something I've looked into yet, so I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for the interview. Cheers. Yeah, I guess I could give you this and you could look into it if you wanted to.
Okay.
Land of Hope and Glory is a UK slaughterhouse documentary. It's all standard legal practice. So I guess any animal products you may consume, you may want to know how they're being produced. I guess real quick, like pigs, a third of all pigs in the UK end up in gas chambers. In the egg industry, male chicks, 99.9% of them at birth are put into a macerator, which is an industrial grinder. They're drowned or they're gassed legally because they'll never produce eggs, so they're of no financial gain to the egg industry. And then in the dairy industry, another example is the calves, the male calves. In 1 year alone in the UK, 100,000 male calves will be shot 24 to 72 hours after birth, simply because they'll never produce milk.
Yeah.
You think any of that's responsible or under the guise of dominion? Or?
No, well, it doesn't sound responsible to me.
I agree. So, I mean, yeah, I'm just out here trying to connect the dots, and I appreciate this interview. For sure, man, for sure. Any closing statements or anything? Or?
No, thank you for the interview.